Okay, so it is a few minutes after our starting time. I just wanted to allow everyone a chance to come in once we started to broadcast. And we are broadcasting to YouTube as well as to our Zoom registrants and participants. Allow me to introduce myself. My name is Patty Smolin. I am the Business Liaison Librarian with the Schaumburg Township District Library. And tonight we welcome Karla Miller with the Washington Post, who is our third presenter in the fourth session of our series to assist job seekers in a post-pandemic market. So I do want to assure everyone, I see some of your incoming chats that you don't have a mic and you're not able to view yourself. That's exactly as it should be when you're using Zoom as a webinar, which is what we are. The only ones that you will be able to see will be myself as the host until I take myself off video, and of course our presenter and the slides that she is going to share with us. So there will not be an audio or a video from your side, but as long as you're able to see us and hear us, then you're doing everything correctly. The Q&A or the chat features are open to you to ask questions or make comments, and we will stop periodically through tonight's presentation to gather those questions and for Karla to address them. I'm also going to be monitoring the questions that come in through YouTube as well. So with that being said, I put a flood of information in the chat field for you to review, and I'm just going to go over that very briefly. My contact information is there, my email address. Should you want to do what we used to call a book a librarian before shelter in place, I can now offer to do that remotely with individuals based on request and appointment, and I can set something up through Zoom to help walk you through some of the library resources. Also, the magical Dewey Decimal numbers for books on resumes, cover letters, interviewing, preparing for your career transition and shifting careers. I've noted them, and that is applicable to our library and most libraries that follow the Dewey system. If you are coming into the library, you are welcome to browse the stacks, or please always ask a staff person or a reference librarian, and we will gladly walk you over to that area to recommend some books. If you are a resident card holder, if we are your home library, you have remote access to a lot of e-resources that are available on our site, and I have noted them in the chat box. I'm also going to put these out on YouTube as well. These are helping your skill building, some technical skills, also canvassing job areas, generating lists based on industry and location. If you would like a demonstration of those, I would be happy to meet with you again by virtual appointment, and we could set something up and I'll help you make the most out of those sources. I also wanted to make mention of two fantastic organizations that have traditionally partnered with the library and remain very active. The North Suburban Cook County American Job Center, their link is there, and St. Hubert's Job Ministry. Tonight's session will be available on the YouTube archive for upcoming weeks, as are the past three sessions. We had welcomed Lauren Milligan from Resume Day, who did the first two sessions on resume and beyond the resume, and Lauren did an outstanding job, really gave us some quality tips. And we also heard from Bree Reynolds from Flex Jobs earlier this week, and she did really highlighted a very needed topic about maximizing your remote work and your remote setup. So with that being said, I'm taking a look through the chats. Yes, so to the one inquiry we had about Monday nights, yes, we have recorded them, and those links are in the chat. So I'm going to take a breath now because I just rattled off a lot of details, and officially welcome Karla to tonight's session. I was so pleased when I received a yes from all three of our presenters, and I would like to give a brief explanation. I approached Karla when I received word that we were recipients of the library's Lead Grow with Google grant, and that is how the series came to be. And I have been an avid reader of Karla's column for a number of years, and was just very impressed with all the things that she was able to say that I could not say. I did not know to say them, But I also, in my position, my position is about pointing individuals to the direction of quality resources. She is really able to take a look at scenarios and opportunities and give guidance, give advice, give very sound advice that we all need to hear. And I'm going to keep reading those columns as long as you write them. And I wanted to lasso them from the Washington Post just for one night only at the library, to say, please give all of that really good direction to our patrons. And I was so glad when you were able to put us on your calendar for that, Karla.
Thank you so much, Patty. I'm really honored to be here, and I'm especially honored to be considered a valued resource by a librarian, no less. This is very exciting. Is everyone ready to begin? We can go ahead and get this party started if everyone's joined.
I think so. We're leaving the doors open for others that have registered, but I say let's carry on. And again, for those of you that do have questions, you're welcome to put them in as those questions come to you. And then Karla will tell us when she wants to take a pause through her presentation. We'll gather them up and then we will present them to her. But Karla, again, so very grateful that you are bringing the final kick into the series.
Thanks again, Patty. I'm really excited to be here. Just a little bit about myself. I am the Washington Post work advice columnist since 2011. One moment here. Yes, so as Patty said, I am the columnist. I am a columnist for the Washington Post. I started in 2011 after, if you can believe it, winning an advice contest on workplace advice. I am not an HR professional. I am not an employment lawyer. I am not an expert in any sense of the word, but I like to observe situations, observe people. I've often been a resource for friends at work for dealing with sticky situations. And I have sort of a wry perspective on things, which I think helps me give perspective around situations and helps people get their heads around situations that might otherwise be overwhelming. So I have had the luck to be the work advice columnist for the Post since 2011. I was with the Washington Post magazine for some years, and then I moved over to the Sunday business section. And I was so excited when Patty reached out to me to give me an opportunity to talk about this topic. It's nice to talk about something besides coronavirus-related work situations, which have pretty much dominated my column since March. So a little background on me is that by day, I am a writer and editor and a video producer for a large accounting firm in the Washington, D.C. area, in the D.C. office. By night, I'm a columnist for the Washington Post, and that's by night, by weekend, by early morning, and wherever else I can fit it in. I'm also a divorced mother of two, so I'm intimately familiar with the struggle of balancing work and life and bringing in income and raising little feral creatures to become decent human beings, and doing all of that while also contending with the pandemic and trying to balance all that out. So I have experience with that. When I say I feel your pain, I really do feel your pain. I understand it intimately, and I try to bring that to every piece of advice I give and to every question I respond to. So let's jump into this. I'm going to start by painting a picture of the current job market. And I'm not an economist, but I read plenty of news, and I believe there's no point in sugarcoating this. Yeah, this is the job market right about now. It is a burning trash fire between the recession that we already had, the pandemic that's shutting everything down, social unrest that we're having to deal with, political issues, economic issues. It's just a really hard time to be looking for a job. Even if you have a job, which is the ideal time to be looking for a job, it's going to be hard to make that move to somewhere else. If you have been in the job market for a long time, you're about midway through your career perhaps, and maybe you've been laid off because of the virus, you're facing that struggle. And if you're a recent grad, by the way, shout out to all the class of 2020, hooray. There's a graduation card for everyone. It's This is a really tough market you're entering into, but the good side of it is, if you're a recent grad, you have no expectations. Your expectations are as low as they can possibly get right now. And you have creativity and resourcefulness and the familiarity with technology that will help you adapt and adjust to these changes. And I don't want to say it could only get better from here, because I think we've learned this year that anytime you say, how could it possibly get worse, it gets worse. But I think it's probably safe to say things are probably going to either maintain or improve from here, and you're going to be ready to face anything this world has to throw at you. And if you're midway through your career, you're facing a layoff, or you've been laid off, or even if you're just looking to switch boats, you have the advantage of experience and a vast network, bigger than you probably even realize, and a lot of skills that you bring to the table, and a lot of stability and institutional knowledge to share. So I don't want anyone to give up or to despair. There are still jobs out there. There are still employers that are hiring. But I want everyone to have a realistic perspective of what it's like. Right now, employers are dealing with low turnover. Well, there are two kinds of employers. There are the unstable employers, the ones who are struggling to stay afloat. They're really trying to generate revenue as much as they can with fewer customers and with fewer resources, and they're trying to stay as much above the red line as they possibly can. They're probably not in the market to hire a lot of people. Then there are the more stable employers who probably are experiencing a lot less turnover than they're used to at this stage. There's probably people who might have moved on by now are staying put because it's really not a friendly market out there. So those employers are not going to be looking to hire a lot of people. And for those employers that are looking to hire, they have a pretty large candidate pool right now. There's just record numbers of unemployment, lots of candidates, lots of qualified candidates, lots of hungry candidates. And what this means is that the scales are tilted in favor of employers right now. It is an employer's market. Employers can afford to be picky right now about hiring. So what this means for you as a job seeker, there is more competition, obviously. There are a lot of people who are going to be going for the same jobs you are, and that was true even before March came down. It's just been a pretty tight labor market right now. There are a lot of small jobs, a lot of gig jobs, but as far as the comfortable full-time jobs that you can build a career off of, sometimes those are hard to get a foothold on. So just be aware this may not be the time to be picky. This might not be the time to be asking what color is your parachute, and how to maximize and get the job that really grabs you and is your dream job. Depending on your personal economic situation, this may be the time to say, okay, I need to take what I can get for now. The good news about that is everybody's in that situation. Okay, everybody is dealing with this. Everybody is dealing with an unprecedented economic situation, and everybody's having to get creative. So there's really, I don't want to say there are no rules, but a lot of the old rules don't really apply. And down the road, when you're explaining to a hiring manager about your career path, and you explain that you went on some bizarre little detour right around 2020, they'll say, oh, right, that was around the time of the pandemic. So anything you do at this point to stay afloat, to keep yourself solvent, to keep yourself sane, it's probably not going to be looked down on by the hiring managers of the future. We're all just trying to do what we can and get by as best we can. So this is a great time to get creative. So this is based on a survey by LinkedIn. The LinkedIn Workforce Report comes out every month. This was from July, based on job postings in June. These were the jobs that were the most in demand, just based on the sheer number of job postings. You can see there's a lot of sales and service, retail, a lot of healthcare positions. Now that's great if you happen to have the qualifications for all of those jobs. But if we take away the ones that require specialized licenses, certifications, training, experience, the healthcare and the white collar jobs, you're left with, more sales, delivery, service positions. So that's, I'm not saying those are the only jobs out there, but those are the ones that are in highest demand right now with this market. There are also some jobs that have increased in demand because of COVID, according to LinkedIn. Occupancy planners, those are people who tell employers how to get the best use out of their office space. And now that we're having to practice social distancing in workspaces, how to make the most use of the space you have, maybe with rotating workers and having rotating shifts, spacing workspaces out carefully so that we're minimizing the chance of contact. Life coaches are in high demand, people who can help talk us through all these changes that we're going through to help us make sense of it. Personal shoppers, people who are stuck at home and they need supplies, they need goods, but it's not safe for them to venture out. They need people they can rely on to make purchases for them. And phone-based contact tracers, if you're wanting to help with the efforts to slow and stop and contain the spread of COVID-19, you can become a contact tracer and pick up that skill, learn how to do that, and really help the community. So I show you those jobs not to say that's all you have, those are your options, but to get you thinking about how the skills that you have and the experience that you have could mesh with these needs. There are definite needs, among employers and among consumers. And you may have skills that just happen to fit those needs at this time. It may take a little bit of creative mental finagling, but you can probably make some connections if you sit down and brainstorm about it. For example, I was speaking with a source who told me about an entrepreneur she knows. He was a restaurant shopper. Meaning he bought food and supplies for a restaurant. Well, the restaurant got shut down because of the virus. However, there's a big call right now for personal shoppers, people to run grocery errands and the like. And so he started putting himself out as a personal shopper. And I don't know about you, but if I'm going to send someone to the grocery store for me, I want to make sure it's somebody who knows the difference between a shallot and a scallion, who knows how to find fresh produce, find the best quality produce, and to know, the value of $1, to know what's a good price for in-season fruits and vegetables, and to be able to pick that out for me. And I know, this person will make good choices for me, make good substitutions, and always be looking out for the best deal. And a restaurant shopper is probably an ideal person to fill that role. So this gentleman, he's being enterprising about the skills that he has, filling a need that other people have. And every time he gets a chance, he says, hey, here's a picture of me shopping at Trader Joe's. Would you like me to be a shopper for you? Here's my information. Here's how you can get in touch. I think all of us who have children, school-age children, and have been dealing with that, if you're living in an area, as I do, where they're going to 100% virtual learning, there is a definite need for help in your home to help tutor your children, help keep them on track, help them keep up with their schooling. There are also a number of teachers who have taken early retirement because they're not safe going back to a school environment. So they've taken early retirement, or there are people who are entering the education field, haven't yet got a foothold, haven't yet started their career, and are looking for opportunities too. So here's an opportunity with people with certain skill sets and families who maybe have small family teaching pods or quarantines and the like, that would be a safer environment for those teachers to enter and help out their kids. So a lot of people are forging those connections themselves. A third example, I have one of my children is a budding theater geek, loves to act, loves to sing and dance. When the schools closed down, I was looking for other activities to sort of keep my kids engaged, keep them occupied, keep their minds refreshed. And so I put out a call among my actor friends for someone who knew how to teach voice lessons to children. And I was put in touch with an actor in New York who was out of work, had experience teaching children voice, and now she gives my daughter voice lessons once a week. It's obviously I can't pay her enough to replace a full-time job, but we worked out something that I could afford and that was acceptable to her. She's getting a little income. My daughter is getting some arts education, stimulation. I'm putting a little bit back into the economy. So those are just some examples, some stories of how people are getting creative and enterprising about what they have to offer and matching that up with what this market needs right now. So does anybody have any questions at this point? I'll take a quick pause, and Patty, if anybody is chiming in with questions, please let me know.
I am searching on both right now. I'm not seeing any questions. I'm seeing some earlier comments. Let me just hop on over to YouTube and see what I find over here. Not seeing any over there either. I'm just so very, very glad that you're talking about kind of using transferable skills for other positions in the now. It brings to mind very briefly that soon after I had graduated, didn't go that exact career path for a little while, and although a full-time librarian position wasn't waiting for me, I took a job as an administrative role for a private investigator. It is not exactly what I thought I would be doing, but it was still research and it was still close enough, and it still allowed for you know, an income and a purpose, and until things shifted. So, you know, we take what we take and hope that it's somewhat closely related to what we do for when things start to change. But yes, that was not the ideal spot that I was going for as a new grad, but I was grateful for the work.
Well, I will tell you, when I graduated from college, I did not have a degree in accounting, but I did end up getting a job with a tax publisher, and I have been doing tax for a couple decades ever since, writing about and editing articles about tax and creating videos about tax. And so that's not where I expected to be, but that was the opportunity that I found. And there is no shame in taking a job that lets you support yourself while you pursue other pursuits, other creative endeavors that really speak to you and inspire you. Okay, so moving on. So much for the environment that we're in. I'm not trying to bring people down. I'm trying to give you hope and trying to inspire a little, maybe create a little spark to get you thinking about new ways of looking for work. Let's move on to a discussion of how you can assess your strengths and your experience and what you have to offer, and how to tell that story, how to present it in your job search. And if you saw any of Lauren Milligan's presentations earlier in the series, she does a fantastic job talking about how to write your resume, how to write a summary, how to highlight your key strengths and key points and tell that story in a compelling and engaging way. First thing you need to know, though, so a few months ago, I was reading an article about artificial intelligence interviews, people interviewing with AI entities, and I thought, what a dystopian nightmare. That's ridiculous. We'll never get to that point. Well, guess what? It seems a little less ridiculous now. As we've learned with work, as we've learned with school, church meetings, happy hours, everything's going online. We're doing virtual everything. We're doing everything by video. And it's becoming our reality. And if you're doing interviews, odds are you're going to be doing interviews by video right now. So telecommunication skills are a hot commodity. In the medical profession, they want people who can do telemedicine, telehealth, who can consult with patients and diagnose them via video as much as possible. Obviously, teaching, education, customer service. They need people who can communicate with students and with clients and customers via video. So what this means for you is you need to get comfortable with video technology. And this is not something that is natural for any of us, but getting comfortable in front of a camera is a really valuable skill. For one thing, when you go for an interview, you're comfortable with the technology, you're comfortable in front of a camera. If you're naturally, well, nobody's naturally comfortable, but if you have learned to make yourself more comfortable with it, then you can think about the interview. You can think about the questions they're asking you and the questions you have for them. And you're not fussing with, oh, is my sound on? Am I muted? Where's my screen? I can't find my avatar. It also shows employers that you can hit the ground running, because odds are they're going to need to hire you into a remote work environment if the job allows for that. And so they want to know that you'll be able to just jump right in the seat and get to work, and you'll be comfortable with it. So that right there gives you an advantage. If you're not quite that comfortable with technology yet, it's okay. There are lots of ways you can get comfortable. I think many of us have done the Zoom happy hours. We've been FaceTiming with family members that we can't see in person. So make use of that. Try out different tools. Download Zoom for free, download Skype for free, play around with them, get familiar with what the controls look like, what the different icons mean, how to make your screen bigger and smaller, and how to turn off your camera if you need to, and just sort of get comfortable with it, get acclimated to it, talking with your friends and family in a very forgiving, relaxed environment, so that way when you go to a more professional environment like a job interview, you'll be comfortable and you'll be ready to go. So I'm going to give you some tips on video interviews and how to make the most of lighting and framing. And I'm really putting myself out here. Here is an extremely unflattering shot of me with my video camera. Okay, lots of don'ts here. This is based on, in my day job, I do, as I said, a good bit of video production. So this is based on my experience as a video producer and also conversations I've had with media coaches and the like. So the first don't have your back to your light source. Don't have the camera facing a window or a bright light, because that's going to be competing with your face and it creates glare. The camera angle here is aimed up at my face, which is extremely unflattering. Holy chins. It also affects my expression because I'm sort of looking downward, and it makes me look sort of dour or tired. My eyes are looking at my face on the screen or on the interviewer's face on the screen, which is, that's a hard habit to overcome. You're used to looking at people's faces, but when it comes to video, when you're making eye contact with someone, you need to be looking in the camera lens, which is the tiny little hole in the top of your monitor. And then there's my messy background. I've got, dishes piled up on the sink. There's a cat floating over my shoulder. It's just, there's too much ceiling in the shot. It's just really not good framing at all. So here are just a few tricks you can try to change that look. Okay, so this is significantly less unflattering than the previous one. The camera is at or above my eye level. That means I have my laptop propped up on a box so that the camera lens is about level with my eyes. And my eyes are mostly looking at that lens, so that when I'm speaking, when I'm talking to an interviewer or someone else, I am making, giving the illusion of making eye contact with them. Now, obviously, you can't do that all the time unless you're a newscaster and you're trained for this sort of thing. But if you can remind yourself to keep looking at the lens when people are speaking to you, then, or when you're speaking to them also, then that creates that illusion of eye contact, and it's going to give you a better overall connection. The background here is kind of neutral. There are lots of options. If you saw Bree Reynolds' presentation on Monday, she was in a small room, had very little space, but she talked about how she put up a decal on the wall to make it look really nice and well furnished, and she had good lighting. And even with a tiny space, as long as you have sort of a neutral background, you can make the most of it. You just want to make sure that it's not distracting from you. And the light source should be behind your camera, behind your laptop. In the picture below, I'm using a lot of natural light from a nearby window, which is terrific if you can get it. Right now, it's getting to be late here on the East Coast, so I'm using my artificial kitchen lights to illuminate everything. So there are just some quick and dirty tips to sort of help you get started, things to think about when you're setting up a video interview or discussion. Now, a little bit about creating, sorry, Patty. Oh, sorry, a little about creating your narrative. Again, Lauren Milligan talks about this in great detail, has some fantastic, brilliant tips on how to create your narrative and tell your story. The thing to start with is your work history. Your resume is usually going to be a reverse chronological listing of everywhere you worked. For this exercise, I want you to not just include your work history, but your unpaid work history, everything in between. Your volunteer activities, things you do for your church, things you do for your kids in their school, hobbies that you do in your spare time, volunteer activities that you do, all of it. And look at it all and see what kind of pattern emerges. I can almost guarantee it's going to tell some kind of a story about who you are, what you value, what you like to do, what you're good at, where your strengths are, how you're most helpful to people. And if you take a look at all that, see what story emerges, sort of take the long view. And then find a way to condense that down into a narrative. A side note here on presenting your narrative in a resume, pay attention to what works for you and what doesn't work. Now, as I said, you want to start with the reverse chronological resume that lists the job positions you've had, starting with the most recent, going to the past. I had a friend who did that, who was a reporter, a writer, had a really impressive portfolio of writing samples. But because his resume was presented reverse chronological order, some of his more important stuff, some of the stuff he really wanted to highlight was getting pushed down because he'd done it, a few years before his current gig. He asked me for a little help rethinking his resume, and I said, well, what if you were to take your work history and arrange it by the kinds of stories that you wrote, not when you wrote them, but the categories that they fit into. So he had a category for investigative reporting. He had another category for personal profiles, a category for food writing, a category for technical government reporting. And he arranged it that way. And again, 9 times out of 10, you're going to want to go with the chronological order. But with this revamped resume of his, talking about the content of what he wrote, he was able to rearrange the pieces and target his resume to editors who were looking for investigative reporting or ones who were looking for government reporting. He could emphasize the content that would appeal to them most. And he said he got a lot more hits that way than he had been doing before. So I don't want to contradict Lauren Milligan. She is the undisputed expert on resume writing. But if you are trying things a certain way, if you've tried the recommended way of doing things and it's not panning out for you, maybe try experimenting a little bit, moving things around, retelling, recasting your story, and see if that maybe gets you better results. And your narrative should be consistent across platforms. I'm not saying you have to tell the story the same way every time, but people should be able to look at you in different platforms and different media and know that it's still you. So here's a sample of me online. It's about all the me you can handle. My LinkedIn profile is all business. It's about me. I say I'm an editor, writer, and a content manager, and I have a side gig giving workplace advice, and I have a prompt for people who, if they want to get in touch with me or connect with me on LinkedIn, to let me know the context for that, because I'm wondering if they are reaching out to me as a workplace advice columnist or as a writer, editor, and video producer. My profiles on Twitter and Facebook are a little more playful. I'm bringing more of my personal life into it. You can see behind me, I've got a sample of one of my kids' artwork, talking about what their mom is really good at. So on Twitter, Facebook, I'm comfortable bringing those things out a little bit more. LinkedIn, however, it is all business. But you can see across the 3 platforms, my narrative is pretty consistent. So from that point, were there any questions up to this point about narrative and job market and video interviews and tips and tricks?
I am not seeing any, but let me jump
Okay.
over to our colleagues on the other side just to make sure that we are getting
Sure.
everyone there.
And a note about that, again, Bree Reynolds did a really fantastic presentation in this series talking about working from home, mobile technology, and doing video interviews. So I strongly recommend, if you haven't seen hers yet, go check it out and you'll get some really good specific tips on how to function in this brave new world.
We are clear on questions for right now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. So moving into the job search. The standard way many of us start is by looking at job sites. Indeed, Career Builder, Monster, all those job aggregator sites, and they're terrific. You don't have to sign up for all of them, maybe 2, maybe 3. If there's a specialized job site for your industry, definitely check that out. Make the technology work for you. Make your job, make it go more efficiently and more effectively by using push notifications, sign up for email digests that come in every few days or every week, or only when new things are posted. So you're minimizing the amount of time you spend searching and poring over job sites. Use automated Google searches to keep you informed about employers that you're interested in, industry happenings, figures in the industry that you want to follow. Schedule yourself reminders to check in with people, to contact people, or to check on certain sites or blogs that you know periodically have updates. Schedule reminders in your calendar. When you talk to someone, you say, I'll check in with you in a couple of weeks. Put a reminder in your calendar to nudge you to go and talk to them, because otherwise it can let weeks lapse into months before you contact those people again. And stretch the notion of what you should apply for. You probably heard this, but when you see a job ad, it's not a list of 100% necessary requirements. It is a wish list. It is an employer saying, if I could have the ideal employee who had all the skills I need for this position, here's what they would be. And if you've read Lean In, I think you might know that there's a gender breakdown about this too, that they say women tend to apply only for positions where they feel like they have 90 to 99% of the qualifications. Men are more likely to apply when they feel like they have about 60% of the qualifications. And you should push the boundaries of what you're comfortable with a bit. Now have a good sense of what you are qualified for. I'm not going to go apply for a tax accountant position because I'm not a tax accountant. I don't have the expertise. I don't have the experience in that. I'm tax accountant adjacent, but a position that relies mostly on writing, or that involves writing and reading and absorbing and analyzing information, that's something I could go for even if I'm not an expert in the subject matter. So have a sense of what you really are qualified for, and then maybe push the boundaries a little bit. A story from the inbox was, it was a librarian who came back during a recession. This is not Patty, by the way. This is not a friend story. This is a literal reader of the column who wrote in. Librarian came back to the job market during a recession, had a hard time finding work, decided to change paths and pursue a degree in accounting. So she got her master's in accounting, I think qualified for CPA license, and was applying for jobs. She saw a job ad that wanted a tax preparer with lots of experience that she didn't have. She knew she really wasn't quite qualified for that, but she thought, well, you know, what could it hurt? So she applied. They brought her in, and sure enough, they said, yeah, you don't have the experience we're looking for a tax prep position. However, we have another position in our firm for a trainer, and we haven't advertised this position yet because we were still putting together the requirements and what we wanted for it. And as it turned out, she had, because on her resume she included blogs she had written, writing she had done, training and teaching she had done, because she had that as part of her narrative. That's what caught the hiring manager's eye. That's why they brought her in, and she ended up getting that unadvertised position. So again, know what you're qualified for. Don't waste your time or the hiring manager's time applying for things that are clearly not in your field of expertise, but stretch the boundaries, push what you're comfortable with. Now, when you're done looking at job aggregator sites, that should only be a small part of your search. Networking, I think you've heard, is really where the bulk of it is. That is where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. Networking is, if you're going to network, LinkedIn is the place to do it. LinkedIn is designed for networking, for professional networking. So get yourself a profile, learn how to create a professional profile on there if you don't have one, and make connections. Mark yourself as open to recruiters so that they know that you're looking for work. Follow groups on LinkedIn, join a discussion, follow industry leaders, and do this on other forms of social media too, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Follow these other people and these other employers, find out what they're doing, engage with them politely online, make yourself, you know, a presence, and keep up with what they're doing. And this is just stuff you can be doing in the background. You can sort of log on to Twitter for a bit, read some things, read about the people you're following, and then move on. But you've got this additional knowledge that's going to help you down the line. Your social connections, obviously, you want to let people know, friends and family. There's sometimes shame around looking for a job, like, oh, I don't want people to know I'm unemployed. They'll think I'm a loser. Nah, we've all been there. We all know. And I know that when I hear of a friend who is looking for a job, I immediately start thinking, okay, who do I know in that industry might be able to give them a leg up? So let people know, but don't drain your social connections. I mean, you don't have to make every conversation about, so did you find me a lead? It can be, let them know, touch base with them from time to time, and just stay in touch with them. And also with networking, you want to play the long game. You don't want to start networking when you're looking for a job. Okay, you should be building your networks, engaging online, talking with people. You should have been doing that, you know, before you had the need for a job. So by the time that you're looking for a job, you're just kind of calling in a favor. You're nudging people and saying, "Oh, hi! Remember we met at that event, and yeah, it was really interesting talking to you about baseball or whatever. Oh, by the way, I'm in the market for a new opportunity. I was wondering if you've heard of anything." So it's that sort of ongoing network building, socializing that you want to be working on as much as you can. So times are hard. People are getting nervous, maybe a little desperate for jobs, and that makes them vulnerable. And that's what con artists are looking for. There are scams out there for jobs, just as there are for get rich quick schemes and on dating sites and anything else you can think of. There are bad actors out there. They are looking to prey on people who are vulnerable, who are letting their guard down because they really have a need for something. So here's some red flags, things to look out for, and be skeptical. You know, put on your skepticals when you encounter these things in your job search. Out of the blue contacts, people who contact you, they have no connection that you can see or that they can articulate to anyone that you know or that anywhere that you've looked. Oh wow, we just saw this. We saw your profile, and you have this fantastic opportunity that you would be perfect for. Um, I'm not saying dismiss them out of hand, but be skeptical. Listen carefully to what they have to say. See if they can substantiate why it is they're contacting you, especially if they don't seem to know anything about what you do or your field of expertise or your industry, or they're, you know, recommending something for a job that's not even in your state or your region of the country. Anyone asking you to spend your own money or put out your own personal information. Now, you're filling out a W-2, okay, yes, you need to put in your social security number and the like. But if you're contacted by a recruiter who says, hey, you pay me and I'll find you a job, it doesn't work that way. Recruiters get paid by employers to find good candidates for them. You should not be paying a recruiter. There may be rare exceptions where you're paying someone to help you conduct a search. Of course, you should be paying a career coach or a career counselor or somebody to rewrite your resume. But those are people that you seek out. Those are people you're approaching and engaging their services for you. Yes, you should be paying them. But if somebody's coming at you, offering you a service that you weren't asking for and then asking you to pay for it, be skeptical of that. Inconsistent details. So often a deal sounds really good and we really want it to happen. We really want it to be true and real. And so we start smoothing over and ignoring some of the little inconsistent details. Here's an example from the inbox. A woman was searching for a job on the Washington Post Classifieds, no less. Came across an ad for someone to be a personal assistant to a busy executive who needed help managing his personal household affairs while he was moving back to the United States. Now, this seemed legitimate. This is a job that this woman had done before. She'd done this kind of work as sort of an executive personal assistant. She got in touch. Funny thing, the executive said he was working for a company that was different from the name of the company that had advertised the opening. And then the more she talked to him, more inconsistencies started coming out. He said, I'm too busy to interview you right now, but here are some tasks that I'd like you to do just to kind of see how you do. And he was having her purchase digital, or he was asking her to purchase digital tablets, cell phones, ship them overseas, make some shipping payments for him. Oh, I have this cargo shipment that came in, but they won't release it until we pay for it. I need to transfer some money into your account so you can pay for it. alarm bells should be going off at this point. And for this woman, they were going off. She cut off contact with the purported executive, talked to me, talked to the Washington Post classifieds people, and they confirmed that, yeah, this was a scam that had been going on for some time. This was scammers that were popping up with different kinds of ads. The Post had shut them down before, but then they created another ad with a new employer, with a legitimate employer name, so that would get people in the door, and then the scammers would get the people off the classified site and start spinning the yarn about services they needed from them, and they're too busy to interview. So then it's up to the job seeker to listen to that little voice and say, wait a minute, what am I, this doesn't make sense, that doesn't match up, and to really listen to their gut. Demanding a quick decision. This is true in romance, in used car sales. You need to make a decision by tomorrow, or we're going to give this job to somebody else. Anytime they're putting pressure on you to make a quick decision, you probably just want to pass. Even if it's a legitimate job, a legitimate employer, do you want to work for an employer that makes those kind of demands on you and expects you to just jump to and do what they need you to do without putting any thought into it? Now, legitimate employers, even if they have an urgent need to hire, they're going to give you time to think through a decision before they ask you to say yes or no. Assigning work with no employment agreement. Oh, well, in lieu of an interview, how about if we just have you do some research on this topic and write up a report, show us what you can do, or give us some designs for a logo that you think would suit our business, on spec, just so we can see what you're doing. That's not a legitimate offer. They're not paying you for your time. They're trying to get work out of you for free. So pay attention to these red flags. If you see these, again, I'm not saying you should dismiss an opportunity out of hand, but these are pretty common signs. If you go to the Federal Trade Commission, ftc.gov, they have a section of their website dedicated to job scams. And if you hear something that doesn't sound quite right, go check it out. Go check out that website and see if the signs and signals that the FTC posts there line up with what you're hearing. Patty, do we have any comments or questions that need responding right now?
You know what, I have one question that's coming in right now is, what are your thoughts about traditional responses like thank you notes after interviews or follow-up phone calls? Are those and that's the question, but I'm kind of interpreting it like, are we too automated where those are no longer important, or are those still considered courteous moves?
Those are absolutely important, yes. Actually, I have a column on that. If somebody wants to send me a question later, I can dig up a link to that column. Yes, manners count. Manners make candidates. It can make or break. If they decided to hire you, a thank you note is not going to make or break you, but it's an important thing to have. It's a nice little bit of polish. It shows that you truly value and appreciate their time, and it's an opportunity to follow up and explain a little bit more about what makes you an ideal candidate. Now, when I say thank you note, I don't mean a handwritten card, because by the time you get that written out and get it in the mail, they may already have made a decision. I mean, if at all possible, get the email address of the people you talk to, fire off an email that day, later, a couple hours later that day. Thank you so much for your time. I really enjoyed meeting with you. Regarding XYZ topic that we discussed, I would really enjoy an opportunity to talk more about how, and maybe you can tie in something that you didn't get to talk about during the interview. And afterward you went, oh man, I wish I'd said that. This is your chance. This is your opportunity. So definitely thank you notes, not just because they're polite, not just because they're good manners, but because they present an opportunity for you to stay in touch and to stay top of mind with those interviewers.
Okay.
Yep.
No, that's a great answer. Thank you.
Okay. So stepping back, self-care during the search. Job searching is one of the most stressful things we can go through, along with, starting school, buying a house, having a child, getting married, getting divorced. It's a really depressing, stressful time. And it has a way of sort of taking over your thinking, where you're spending every waking minute thinking about, God, I hope I get a job today. I need to go check these sites. I need to get on my resume. And it can consume your every waking moment. Now, yes, you should be focused on it. If you're looking for a job and you're serious about it, it's not something you can just give a lick and a promise. But you don't want it to consume your every waking hour. To go back to the story of the librarian turned accountant I was talking about earlier, the one who applied for an accounting job that she wasn't quite qualified for, but turned out to be a perfect fit for an unadvertised position. She had been searching for a long time for a job. She was over the age of 50 and was starting to run out of hope, starting to run out of money, feeling pretty desperate when she wrote into the column. She met with temp agencies, employment agencies, and there was one person she talked to who said, well, your resume here is fantastic. I can see you have all these skills. You talk a good game. You tell me about your strong skills, and your resume backs it up. But you look like you're afraid I'm going to hit you. Something about this woman who was interviewed, this librarian slash accountant, she was so beaten down by her job search, so stressed out, and so just anticipating more bad news that it was seeping through when she was talking to people. It was coming through in her body language, how she carried herself, how she spoke, and bad vibes are a thing. It can send off bad vibes. People can sort of sense that, and they are less likely to respond. It's not going to make you an appealing candidate. So I tell you that to say, to show how the stress of a job search can get you down and how it can affect your prospects. And I want to talk a little bit about how to prevent that from happening. So we've heard finding a job is a full-time job. And in a sense, that's true as far as it goes. But a lot of times what people think it means is you spend 40 hours a week looking at job sites, asking people for leads, and applying for jobs, and sending in resumes and filling out forms. And you sit in your chair and you do that 40 hours a week in front of your computer. And when I say people think that, I mean me and people I've known. Traditionally, I've had that mindset where you just go and you look for a job and you apply for the job and you get the job. It's not quite like that, and if you try to spend 40 hours a week doing that, you're going to drive yourself mad. It really should look more like this: a combination of looking at job sites, applying for jobs, networking, not just asking people for job leads, but contacting people, saying, hey, I saw this article, it made me think about you, or we were just talking about this the other day. There's sort of quick touches that say, I'm thinking about you, I have something to offer you, just to stay fresh in their minds. Learning, reading news articles about things that interest you, reading blogs, watching videos, maybe taking some courses to brush up on your skills, podcasts. I'm a huge fan of Mac Pritchard's Find Your Dream Job podcast. It's out of Portland, Oregon, from maxlist.org. I include some links to that at the end of this presentation. He has different guests on every week talking about different aspects of searching for jobs, making yourself marketable, succeeding at your job, and just a wide range of topics. And just listening to that helps me feel relaxed and helps me feel like I'm getting a private coaching session. And then there's the tending to life portion of looking for a job. In addition to looking for work, you need to take time to keep yourself fed, watered, rested, entertained, move, engage with some art. Watch something that makes you laugh, watch something that makes you cry, things that remind you that you're a human being and you're not just a job-seeking machine. If you are not alone, if you have a partner, especially if that partner has become a breadwinner, you should probably be tending to your life with that partner as well and keeping that alive, keeping that connection alive as much as you can. You might think, well, I'm not bringing any income into the house, I need to get a job ASAP. There are non-financial contributions that you can make to your household that will make your partner's life a bit easier, will make life more pleasant for both of you. And even if you have the kind of partner who is hovering and saying, well, what did you find? Have you found a job? Have you found anything? Did you interview with anybody? I can almost guarantee if you are making dinner or you're looking after children, giving that partner a rest and making that your partner's life a little bit easier, it's a lot less chance that they're going to be hounding you that way. So all of these things are important. All of these things should be part of your job searching week. And then the white spaces in the middle, those are breaks, real legitimate breaks. When you work, you get breaks. You get, hopefully you get paid vacations. Just because you're not being paid to take those vacations now and not being paid to take those breaks doesn't mean you shouldn't get them. At some point, yes, you need to buckle down and do the work and be disciplined. And you can get into a flow when you sit and concentrate. You flow and you do better work. But after a certain amount of time, you get diminishing returns. I think they found that in a information processing kind of job, people can work about 6 hours and then they start getting burned out. So, excuse me. So in the process of looking for work, you need to be,
You okay, Karla?
sorry about that, technical difficulties. So the job search should not just be about finding a job. It should be about taking care of yourself and preparing yourself for opportunities that could arise. And I want to leave you with this thought. This was actually part of the series of columns that I wrote about the librarian accountant, talking about how your job search isn't just about what you've done at your last job. It's about so much more than that. If you could take a minute to sort of read it through and absorb it.
Should we attribute this quote to you then?
I'm sorry?
Should we attribute this quote to you, Karla?
Yes, actually, you can attribute that to me. That's actually, I kept thinking it through and I thought, I can't say it better than that. That's the best I can say it. All your experiences, all your life, it's a mosaic. So here are the resources I drew heavily on for this presentation. As I said, Max List, Mac Pritchard, Find Your Dream Job, fantastic podcast. The series that Patty has put together with me, Lauren Milligan, and Bree Reynolds. And of course, I have to include a plug for my column in the Washington Post Sunday Business section. If you go to washingtonpost.com/work advice, you'll see all my columns going back over the past year. If you can't access them for some reason, there is a paywall at the Washington Post because we need to get paid. But if you can't access a column, if you're told you've hit the paywall, then I'm sure you could probably find a local librarian who'd be willing to help you out with that. This list of links I provided to Patty, and she can send it to anyone who's interested. These are some of the stories and some of the sources that I referenced in today's talk. And if you have questions, about the search for a job, about preparing yourself for a job, about once you land a job, how to manage in the workplace, you can reach me on LinkedIn. There's my email address for the Washington Post Advice column. And I'd be delighted to have you join me on any social media sites. So if anybody has any questions, I am eager to hear them, and I will return control of the presentation to Patty.
Well, I would gladly share the control of that. I feel like I'm in a Star Trek Enterprise. Well, we do have one. We had one question that was about how do you deal with the stress? Someone had just mentioned they were feeling very, very stressed out and, looking for a job. It's a full-time job. But I do believe that you've answered that question. If that patron is needing more information, please put it in the chat box. But otherwise, we're getting a compliment to you. This was awesome info. Thank you, Karla.
Thank you very much.
But yes, I also appreciated your graphic, because that other one, the first one, was quite dismal. lately. Um,
Yes, I try not to bring everyone down too much, but I like everyone to have sort of a grounding in what the reality of the world is. Another note on stress and managing stress, I didn't mention this because every advice columnists always mention this and people hate to see it, but counseling is so important. If you can get hold of a therapist, a clergy member, somebody who's just a really good sympathetic ear to help talk about these things, it's so valuable. And I know therapists are not cheap, and if you don't have insurance, it can be difficult to find one who accepts your insurance. But anything you can do to connect with people and to talk about these issues, get them outside of your own head, that is going to help keep you from spiraling and going into a depression.
well, yeah, I actually, I mean, I thought that was particularly, it just really spoke home, just spoke to, spoke to home as far as self-care and what'd you say, get moving too. I think endorphins and adrenaline work pretty hand in hand together.
Absolutely. And especially now, I mean, responses are going to be few and far between from employers. It might be a while before you hear from anybody on anything. And so you need to get yourself out of the searching mode and sit back a little, tend to the rest of your life. And as I say, prepare yourself to receive the opportunities when they are. So when those opportunities do pop up, you're ready.
Another question has just come in. Any special tips for those that are 50 and over?
50 and over. Oh my goodness. Yeah, this is something I hear about a lot with the column. Age bias is a thing. There's no denying it. The problem with it is it's hard to prove. I mean, a hiring manager can look at your resume and see the year you graduated or see certain terms that you use, and that tips them off that you're of a certain age. I I don't have guaranteed answers except to be honest and forthcoming about your experience and your knowledge. Make sure that you're projecting enthusiasm in everything that you do. In your resume, you talk about why you love what you do. You're not just looking for a job because I just need something to do with myself. It's I am enthusiastic about this. I have a lot to contribute. I have a lot of energy. Staying abreast of, as I said, video technology and these other trends that job seekers are having to adapt to. Do your best to stay on top of those and show that you can hang and you can hit the ground running in any job.
Out of the three social media platforms you had, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, which is the one that you give most attention to for your job search? And about how much time do you think that really consumes out of your job search each day?
So for a job search specifically,
Mm-hmm.
I would say LinkedIn. I mean, honestly, I have to confess I'm not the most attentive LinkedIn participant. I have a profile, I update it from time to time, and I check in every little bit. But if I were searching for a job, I would probably spend most of my time there, doing my networking, building my networks, keeping an ear out for connections, staying active on there. But it could also depend on what kind of career you have. If you're a social media looking for a job in social media, then Twitter might be a better environment for you to engage in. So it sort of depends, but I think LinkedIn is the best place to start.
We just had a comment from a patron. I'm 57, lost my job after 30 years. Thank you for reminding me to be more enthusiastic when looking for a job.
And now I I know it's not as easy as just being enthusiastic, but when I talk about taking care of yourself, I really do mean it. Look after yourself. Remember the things that you enjoy. And I know it's hard right now because you can't just go out to a movie. You can't just go to the theater or go see a show. But as much as you can, get out of your own head, okay? And try to keep the faith. Try to do something, even if it's a volunteer position or a low paying, just a low paying anything that gets you out of bed in the morning. It's maybe worth considering pursuing that because I'm finding with the quarantine in the mornings, it's sometimes hard to get up and get going because I don't have that motivation of, I need to be somewhere at a certain time. But the more you can do to keep that sense alive, whether it's meeting with friends or meeting with a friend for a socially distanced walk in the morning, you have something to look forward to, something to keep you going and to keep you alert and energized.
I'm, of course, even though the library is a little bit different these days, I'm going to encourage, those that are looking for purpose to spend your time is just to route your feet towards the local library. Explore some stacks you haven't seen before, fiction, nonfiction, take a look at some new music that might appeal to you, and, offset the heaviness of looking for a job and all that it does sometimes drain from us, is that you also deserve to treat yourself to entertainment in your readings and what you listen to and what you view, to the degree that you can. Come into the library, and it is still a welcoming place.
And a side note about is something I forgot to mention earlier. My former husband, when he was between jobs, he PhD in physics, a scientist. He took some tutoring gigs with high school and college students, helping them get through advanced science courses. Not paying a whole lot of money, not enough to again build a career on. But interesting fact, one of the parents of one of the kids he was tutoring had a connection with a startup energy company that he was interested in pursuing opportunities with. This parent was able to introduce him to people at that company. They made a connection, and now he works with them. So you just really never know when these opportunities are going to pop up. My best advice for that, to make those opportunities happen, keep moving. Keep doing things that keep you interested, keep you engaged and inspired, and don't just keep swimming.
Wonderful, wonderful direction. Okay, I think we're all wrapped up with questions right now. So that will bring us to the close. I do want to make mention to those of us that are still connected by YouTube and otherwise. I will be sending the list of sources that Karla has prepared for us. I'll be sending that out early tomorrow morning. But if you have any questions, you have my contact information at the very top. If you're looking for past columns of the Washington Post, if you don't already have your own subscription, you can get in touch with the library, and we will route you to where you can get a copy of them, because I think there's some wonderful ones. I never would have thought in a million years, from reading the one that you wrote right around New Year's about boundaries. You wrote this wonderful about work boundaries, what was going to happen in 3 months, how our boundaries were going to actually really, really be boundaries. So I know you meant it in one context, but I look back at that past column, and it was a great way to start off 2020, but who knew?
I certainly didn't. Look back at some of the things that I wrote before, and it's like, really, was that a problem? I mean, on the bright side, I'm not getting so many complaints about coworkers belching or microwaving smelly lunches or, singing to themselves. So
I try to look
silver
at the glass
linings.
half full, but
Yeah.
we did get a couple of compliments. I just want to make mention for you before we wrap up. Thank you. Very interesting and great advice. Thank you, Patricia and Karla.
Well,
All right.
thank you
Well, thank
all.
you for
Yeah.
everyone for attending. And Karla, if you would just stay on with me for a moment, and then we can wrap up. And we got another thanks from Bill. Well, and cheers to all of you. I hope you all are staying healthy. If there's something that the library can assist you with, whether we are your home library or elsewhere, please do tap into us. We are here and ready to help where we can. But thanks again for making time for us, and take care.